Wow, look at all these people coming in and all these bots coming in to record our event. We're so popular, the bots. Welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is still April. It is the April Irrational Labs event. It's the event you've been waiting for. It's the knowledge you need. It's the thing that you want to find out. You want to know all about how this crew doubled course starts. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday. It's not Friday, but you can pretend it's Friday. And some of you, probably it's Thursday evening, so you're a lot closer to Friday. But in the chat, let us know where you're coming to us from today. We would love, love, love to get a sense of where everyone's at. So in the chat, give us your, Columbus, Ohio, except Michelle. Michelle, I have beef with Columbus, Ohio. 10 guesses why. I have beef with Columbus, Ohio. But we have Nottingham, we have Italy, we have Richmond, we have NYC, we have Lyon, we have Nashville, Denver, London. Oh my gosh, Bangalore, London. This is great. Michelle, I went to University of Michigan, so we only beef with Columbus, Ohio. Boulder, but you're still cool. Berlin, Paris. James, good to see you too. Hey, nice. What's up? Boston, awesome. Great, great, great. Cambridge. Wow. Oh yeah, MA, not UK. It's cool. It's still cool. It's an MA. LA, Seattle. What's up, Sharon? Sean. Wow. Some of the familiar faces are here. Cooler, much cooler. Awesome. So we've got a worldwide crew today ready to take this on, and you are in for a treat. We've got all the geniuses in the house. That's not counting me. I'm the kind of just regular intelligence here. And then we have all the smart people to talk to today. So with that, I'm going to start by introducing our managing director, Katie Dove, to kind of set the scene for you and tell you all a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So, Katie, tell us about the things.
Amazing. Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to channel some of your energy. I will not hit the peak, but really excited to see all of you today from all over the world to talk to you a little bit about a recent experiment we ran. And I will say, just off the start, this was a very long time in the making. I could not be more excited because I think when we were talking about like when did we kick this off, it was August of 2024. And why was this such a long process for us? It's the complexity of the problem space. It's really hard to imagine a more difficult behavior change canvas than asking someone to sit and be with themselves or go through kind of one of these activities in silence and see the payoff longer, much longer on. So we had some really incredible partners. Meagan and the Headspace team really focused on mental health and well-being and mindfulness, and Laurent and the Purcell team, the no-code platform for in-app journeys, who really helped us to build out this 5-variant test. And of course, we are Irrational Labs. We are a behavioral product design shop. So what does that mean? We take what we know about psychology and decision making and use that to move behaviors within product. So really excited to talk to you today a little bit about what we tested, what worked, what didn't, what we learned, and some of our great partners along the way.
Yeah, this is awesome. So I will give you Katie's LinkedIn in the chat so you can be her friend. Katie, you need friends, obviously. But should you want to know more about this project, definitely reach out to Katie. No, she has lots of friends, everybody. But yes, these are the three players involved today: Headspace, Irrational Labs, and Purchasely. And with those three players comes the actual stars of the show. So let me introduce you to the people that will be leading you through today's adventure. Are you ready? Yes, you are. Here we go. Number one from Headspace, the woman, the legend in Boston, Meagan, the lead product manager. That's right. She is the one and only LPM. I don't know if you're really called the LPM, but I just made that up because it sounded cool. But of course, as you know, Headspace is the world's leading mental health and mindfulness app. She leads product strategy and execution for experiences used by tens of millions of people to build healthier habits around sleep, stress, and focus. So at this moment, I'd like you to all stop and take a deep breath and observe a moment of silence for Meagan's greatness. Excellent. Good. It was a very small moment. Okay, next player, the one, the only, from Ireland and put into San Diego. And he's not even sunburned today. That's right. Karl Purcell, our senior behavioral scientist. He helps all the Fortune 500 companies, or at least like 5 of them, to turn behavioral insights into confident, scalable decisions. His superpower is being really funny, but also he designs realistic out-of-product experiments to help companies answer really, really tricky research questions. I mean, he's actually, for real, brilliant at what he does and a lot of fun to work with. We'll drop his LinkedIn in the chat, and Megan will drop your LinkedIn in the chat. And oh my gosh, I guess that means we're saving the best for last, right? Wait, hold on, Laurent, what city in France are you in today?
Paris.
Okay, cool. All right, I got this. Okay, cool. And coming to you live from Paris, my man Laurent, the Chief Revenue Officer from Purchasely. That's right. He is it's the leading no-code platform for designing, testing, and optimizing in-app subscription experiences. So he lets mobile app users build and run sophisticated paywall experiments without writing code or shipping a new app version. And it's used by some of the world's biggest players in the app space to grow revenue. So this is exciting stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It's so exciting that I have to go and let Karl take over. So the agenda is going to be Karl's going to tell you about the challenge. The team's going to talk about this behavioral diagnosis, the experiment they designed, what happened. There were 3 layers of incredibly interesting results. And then you're not going to get 1 learning. You're not going to get 2 learnings. You're not going to get 3 learnings. You get 5 learnings. I mean, woo! But Rosie, tell them what they can do in the background while they're learning.
Yes, great. So while you're listening to this fantastic talk, we've got a little Q&A document. So if you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in this document so we can, at the end, go through them in the order in which they've been put in the document, and hopefully we can get through as many questions as we can. So I'll just share that with you now, and I'll keep sharing it throughout, so it'll be in the chat.
Yeah, and it is like first asked, first answered is our our strategy for the Q and the A. So make sure you take advantage of that Google Doc as questions arise. Please put them in the doc, and we'll go to that queue after the presentation today. So thank you all for coming. We are excited to engage with you. Karl, take this screen over, man. You got this.
I got it. I'm sharing my screen, coming to you live from San Diego. I don't get to say it's Saturday night after that, not yet. But it's Thursday morning, so nearly as good. I'm gonna frame up the challenge a little bit and talk a little bit about why this was a tricky and thorny problem, and then I'll pass over to Megan to give us some background about some things that we knew about Headspace users at the time when we designed this experiment. So this is actually, like Katie said, a really difficult problem, right? Getting people to meditate is hard. Getting them to meditate or engage in good like sleep practices or deal with more focus issues consistently is even harder. So this is the project that we took on together, really trying to attack a single question, really, which was, look, if we take a behaviorally informed approach, if we take everything we know about user psychology and apply it to the onboarding flow at Headspace, can we turn more free trial users into active meditators? Can we get people to form a stickier habit where they're actually actively engaging with this content over a longer period of time and getting the great benefits that Headspace know that it produces when people do these things, right? Whether that's meditation, engaging in a better sleep practice, whatever it is. This is the problem that we took on. And let me tell you, it was no small task. And more specifically, our research question was, can we use behavioral design to increase paid conversion from free trial to paid members? And we always like to get even more specific than that. We like to call it getting uncomfortably specific. So it's not enough just to write that. We need to say, well, how are we going to do this? So one of the key strategies, and I'll talk about this in a couple of slides' time when I walk you through the experiment design, is that we thought we might be able to increase people's value perception of engaging in this habit more often through what we call idiosyncratic fit, which is this idea that if we make the content feel like it's been more personalized, more tailored for you, like you are in a unique position to take advantage of this thing that's being offered to you, that would increase people's motivation and encourage them to start a course and ultimately go on to continue to engage in a wellness practice.
Marketing work.
For 14, for who we were targeting 14-day free trialists on iOS. That was the specific target group that we wanted to help. And then the outcome that we were really trying to move was increasing daily starts. So people coming into the Headspace app, opening up a piece of content and actually following it through, right? So whether that's a sleep session or a meditation session or something else, because we thought that would lead to improved conversion rates and help people, of course, improve their wellness as a result. Um, One of the things that we always do as part of a project like this is that we spend a lot of time in a phase of called behavioral diagnosis. So a few faces I recognize here, you'll be aware of what this is if you've been to one of our webinars before. But for those who haven't, behavioral diagnosis is really trying to look at every step in a user's journey, in this case, the onboarding journey, and say, what are the psychological barriers that might trip someone up from doing this thing that we want them to do, right? Like, think about what's happening here. People are signing up for a free trial for Headspace. They clearly want to meditate or have better sleep or have better focus, right? But we know that there's always an intention action gap. And what we want to do in the behavioral diagnosis is say, why is that gap present, right? What are the psychological barriers that are stopping people from turning their clear intent to do these things into the action of actually doing them? And so, Meagan, I'll let you unmute here and talk us through a little bit about what you had already learned about your users when we were kind of framing up and trying to have this discussion about what these barriers might be.
Thanks, Karl. So we wanted to ground ourselves in what we already knew before going into this work. The first is that active days during the free trial is a strong predictor of paid conversion. We knew the more a user engaged early, the more likely they were to stick around and pay. Second, we had already run an experiment showing that matching users to the right course drove a 20% lift in engagement. And third, qual research backed up that new users wanted clear next steps and a more guided journey. So the data really pointed to early engagement and personalization as critical levers for us.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, I think that's really what came out. In particular, I really like the qualitative research that you all shared with us around that time. So, for all of you, just so you know, Headspace do this great user research where they have people actually like journal how their experience with the app has been like during sign up and during their first time, kind of couple of weeks using the app. And what came out really clearly from that was that people wanted a little bit more hand holding and they wanted like a personalized experience, just like Megan said. And you'll see that really gets reflected then in the kind of interventions that we design to try and encourage this key behavior. Some other things that we looked at while we were thinking about, well, why people might not be converting their intention to have these better wellness habits into action were some things like that you can see here on the screen. So first of all, we were a little concerned that maybe people didn't have like the perfect mental model of what courses they should take. So Headspace does a really nice job of giving you a bunch of different options, right? Headspace has great content for people who want to have better sleep, have better focus, maybe practice meditation, deal with some anxiety they might be having. Um, but as a result, sometimes, right, it's hard to know, well, how often should I be doing these things? Like, what does it look like to be a good meditator or a good sleep practicer, right? And so we wanted to help people form a clearer mental model about how many times a day they should use the app, how often they should be coming back. And you'll see that reflected in some of the interventions that we designed here. We also wanted to tackle that there might be a little bit of choice overload, right? So having a lot of choice can be a good thing when people do indeed have like distinct preferences and they know what they want. But for new users who are coming in, sometimes a lot of choice can be overwhelming, right? And so we wanted to try and simplify that down by helping people find like a perfect course for them during the onboarding experience. And then finally, and this is an intentional choice, Megan, feel free to come off mute and talk to bit this as well. But a lot of apps will have what we'll say is a very aggressive notification campaign, right? And I think Headspace is very good at being intentional about not doing that, right? And respecting users' kind of peace of mind and not bombarding them with notifications. But that does also leave a little bit of a challenge of like we need to get prompts for people to return. I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about the intentionality behind that, Megan.
Yeah, we really try to do that. I mean, if you think about our product, we're a meditation app, people are coming to us to try to relax and be calm. And if we're hitting them over the head with too many notifications, it can do the opposite, right? And just create stress and overwhelm.
Yeah, well said, exactly. And so what we were trying to do in this experiment was find, well, can we find a more respectful way, let's say, to still give people at least some prompt or help them make a plan to return to the app if we're not going to be sending a lot of notifications. So where that brought us to was a stage where we really had kind of framed up our key set of hypotheses. We had three main behavioral levers that we wanted to test to see if pulling those levers would move the outcome and the behaviors that we really cared about. So first off, what we want to do is help people define success. So you heard me talk about this just a minute ago, right? Like, what does it mean to be a good meditator, a good sleeper, a good person who like has good focus in their life? It's not always super clear what that means. And so helping people define success for themselves, right? Understand like roughly how often should I be doing this, for how long, and what type of content should I be doing? If we could do that well, then maybe people would be more likely to stick around because they'd have that sense of, oh yes, I am or I'm not are not doing that correctly. Secondly, we wanted to make personalization ridiculously easy. So like I said, Headspace has all this amazing content with very specific content for like, well, if you're having anxiety about money problems, for example, or if you want to have more focus for your work, for example, they've got that content for you. But helping people find that quickly so that they get that sense of personalization without having to go through the effort, that's what we really wanted to achieve in our new onboarding experience. And then, like you heard me mention just a slide ago, if we're not going to rely on notifications to bring people back, then we do need to get people to plan ahead. So, could we give people basically a way of making a really concrete plan about when, where, and how they'll meditate? And will that change the likelihood that they come back to the app time and time again? These are the levers that we wanted to test. So essentially, our theory of change was this. If we're think about what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to increase active use during that 14-day free trial period. We're trying to get people to meditate or do a sleep practice more and more during that period. Our theory of change was like, if we can get a better onboarding experience designed with better behavioral science, that will lead to more course starts. That in turn will drive deeper engagement, and then we'll get lasting habits, and that will turn into the metrics we really care about, which is active meditation days and conversion from free to paid. Let me take just like a quick sidebar here on why course starts are so central here, both literally and visually here, but also kind of theoretically to how we were going to get here. You heard us talk about like we want to give people a structured way of knowing how often they should be meditating. The closest thing that Headspace had to this at the time was courses, I think it's fair to say, right, Megan? Like they're a structured multi-day commitment where you basically sign up and say, yes, I want to take this course. And then there's a number of sessions that you're meant to do over a certain number of days. And so that really helps us build back that mental model of how often you should be doing this. And they deliver clear next steps, right? When you finish the first part of a course, you go to the next one and the second one and then the third one. And so it's clear like what progression looks like as well. And so this is why we thought courses would be kind of like the key unlock here. If we could just get people to find the right course and start one, that would help make them more sticky, and therefore we'd get more meditation. I want to pause here for a second just before we go into the experiment design. Everyone feel like that's super clear? Any questions in the chat? Like, do I need to explain that again? Or everyone feel like you got a good solid idea of why we were doing what we were doing? Perfect. Okay. Let me know if there's anything else in the chat, and I can always
Carl,
re-explain again. Yeah, Ryan.
Carl, notably, nobody threw a tomato emoji at you. Yes.
A good day when I survived the Tamatina. Good.
I know, I know. That's we were talking about this earlier, how people should use like go back to like the 1920s and throw tomato emojis at people. So if at any point, Carl, oh, there we go, Sean, that's what I'm talking about. So if at any point you need to use it, use the tomato emoji, please.
Yeah. And in the name of, wellness and all that, since we're partnering with Headspace, if throwing a virtual tomato at you makes you feel better, I'm here for it. So I'll allow it. All right,
Carry on, Carl.
thanks, Ryan. Um, okay, what I'm going to talk about now is how we actually set up the experiment, how we design it. And during this section, I'm going to bring Laurent is from Purchasely in to talk about the actual implementation and how Purchasely facilitated this experiment that I think otherwise without them wouldn't have been possible. So what we did here was we said we're going to have a a 5-arm experiment, right? So essentially we're going to have 5 different onboarding flows, and we'll randomly assign those new users that they signed up to one of 5 different onboarding flows. And I'm going to walk you through those one by one. I'll give you a high level overview and then I'll show you the screens as well in just a second. So first, as in every good experiment, we have our control group, right? And so in the control group at the time in the Headspace app, essentially what would happen is you would fill in your like payment details. You would get a little reminder saying, You have a 14-day trial. You get a reminder before your trial is up to if you want to cancel. And then users would complete a 1 minute breathing exercise, and then they're brought straight to the day tab. So that screen I showed you earlier, where there was kind of a number of different courses that you could choose to start from on a given day. So that's the control group. That's the existing experience that we're comparing against. Our first design was what we called default to basics. So Headspace have a really nice course that's called the basics course. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a series of guided meditation and wellness practices set up for people who are really just doing this for the first time. And so what we would do is we would have them complete the control flow of the 1 minute breathing exercise and so on. And then they would get brought straight to the basics course. We would show them a screen and say, hey, would you like to opt into the basics course like we recommended for people who are new users? And I'll show you that screen in just a minute. In the third group, every single user that got assigned to this group of called perceived fit are offered the basics course after we give them a personalization onboarding quiz. This will become even clearer when I show you the screens in a minute. But if you think about why we're calling it perceived fit, it's basically because while we're asking you personalization questions in an onboarding quiz, no matter what you answer, we're not actually tailoring the course you see at the end. We're always going to give you the basics. And the reason we wanted to do that was to test our hypothesis that sometimes what matters is not actually the your ability to match or like personalize. Sometimes it's the what really matters is that people perceive that they are being matched to a course that's right for them. And so that's what we're testing with this condition. Condition 4 says, well, if you're going to go there, you got to go further, right? You got to say, well, does the personalized matching actually matter, right? And so in this condition, what people would do is they would fill our new onboarding quiz responses, and then we would indeed match them to a personalized course based on their answers. And then you can clearly get the idea here, right? If we can compare groups 3 and 4, that will allow us to answer the question of what matters more, the perception that something is personalized or that the fact that it actually is personalized for them. And then 5, my pet condition that we helped design was pre-commitment, which is this idea that, especially for things that you have to do over and over again, when you ask people to make and commit to a plan about how, when, and where they will specifically do this behavior, it makes them more likely to engage in that behavior. We wanted to test this hypothesis. And then for each group here, we're measuring outcomes like app opens, course starts, and of course, the most important one, active meditation and sleep session minutes. Let me show you what these experiences look like, just so you can really get a sense of what these different experiences look like. The control group, like I mentioned, you complete the status quo onboarding flow. You are told how your trial works. You complete a 1 minute breathing exercise, and you're landed on the Today tab. In our default to basics condition, same idea, but we offer you in the middle the opportunity to start the Exploring Stillness course. Now, it's called default to basics, the condition, but we call the course Exploring Stillness. Why did we do that? That was very intentional, right? While people like things to be personalized to their level, no one likes to be called basic, right? And I'm not just using California slang that I've been here too long, but like, yes, even if you are a beginner, it's not nice to be called a beginner, right? And so we renamed this course Exploring Stillness so that people would be more likely to opt in and take this course that is actually right for them as a beginner, even if we're not calling it that. And then our kind of big swing conditions here, right? And this is where Purchasely really helped us get an unlock for this experiment. These 3 conditions are quite complicated. We added, I'm going to get this wrong, but we added on order of like 6 to 7 screens per condition. We added a bunch of complex branching. And what you'll see here is how these work. So in the perceived fit condition, we ask people some new questions during onboarding. So for example, we ask them things like, what's your experience with mindfulness? Like, are you brand new? Did you tried it once or twice before? Maybe you're like deep into your practice, for example. And remember, in the perceived fit condition, no matter what you said in this, we always showed you that basic Exploring Stillness course. So you could have said, I'm deep into my practice. We give you Exploring Stillness. And this is again another reason why it was important to rename the basics course Exploring Stillness, right? To make it not super obvious to people who are saying I'm deep into my practice that they were being given beginner content. In the personalized fit condition, we do take your questions and how you answer them into account. So for example, what's your experience with mindfulness? I've tried it once or twice. I'm pretty familiar. I'm deep in practice. Depending on what you answer, you would get a different course recommendation. And so we had another question in our quiz that was something like, how often do you want, or how long do you have in a given day to engage in a wellness practice? And if you said less than 5 minutes, we would give you a course literally titled 5 Mindful Minutes, right? So really trying to tailor people's answers to the course that they should be matched with. And then the final condition, like I mentioned a minute ago, is our pre-commitment condition. We want people to make and commit to a plan to meditate with a very specific course, right? And so what we do here is we ask very specific, direct questions about when, where, and how you're going to meditate. So you can see one here on the screen. How much time can you spend on your daily mindfulness routine, right? 1 to 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes. And we would ask you questions like, where do you plan on doing this? Like in your bedroom, on the commute home. We had a couple of different options like that. And that really was to try and help me people make this concrete plan. And then again, we would match you to a course based on your answers on what you said. So hopefully that's super clear. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Laurent, who's going to just explain a little bit about how Purchasely really helped us unlock the ability to do quite a complicated experiment in onboarding with 5 conditions. So Laurent, you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you, Karl. So if we look at the implementation of this experiment, there were three key challenges that we had to overcome. The first one is that actually there are a lot of app screens involved. So here you see one flow. It's around a dozen of screens. You multiply that by 5 and you get over 60 screens to code just for one experiment. So an experiment also means that most of these screens will never be used again after it. The second challenge is about, even if it's an experiment, you still need the quality of the UI and of the UX to be absolutely top-notch. For brand purposes, reasons, of course, Headspace doesn't want the users to have a subpar experience, but also because you don't want any glitch, any bug to alter the reliability of the A/B test experiment results. The third challenge we had to overcome is everything that relates to data collection. As Karl mentioned, here we're looking at onboarding. We're collecting user preferences. So even if it's an experiment, you need to have that working. And the second one is related to having all the analytics in place so that even these complex experiments provide all the results we need to assess what variant works best. That leads me to the next slide. We're really proud when we heard from Irrational Labs and Headspace that without a tool like Purchasely, such an experiment would have not been possible. Why? Because even for a company like Headspace, there would have been too many coding resources required, too much time to get it up and running, too much internal coordination with regard to app releases, and also a lot of data work to set that up right and ensure we have everything we need. The Purchasely platform removed all these blockers. All the screens, all the flows were created in no code. You could deploy them instantly in the app without waiting for an app release. There was a seamless analytics integration. And also, last but not least, a perfect user experience thanks to a native rendering technology. The icing on the cake is that with the Purchasely platform, even sophistication becomes accessible, and that leads me to the next slide. Karl, please. You mentioned, Karl, just the complex branching that we had to put in place for 3 of these experiments. Actually, it was not that complex. The Purchasely editor made it very easy. So you see here a flow. That's just a screenshot, and you can see actually how with the Purchasely editor, you are drag and dropping all the screens, drawing the branches, setting up the conditions, and voila. You have a complex flow that is personalized to the user behavior and to the user interest, and that is ready to go in production or included into an A/B test.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laurent, for that. I agree completely. And just to add some like color to this, like as a behavioral scientist, right, when you design an intervention like this, especially with a lot of personalization, your biggest fear is like, what if we mess up the personalization? Like, I'm not a coder. Like, what if we get the logic branching wrong or something like that? And this no code editor was easy enough for me to use and come in and be able to just do things like, I'm just going to run through this flow 50 times if I want. And I'm going to try all the different variants. I'm going to give all the different answers. I'm going to make sure I get assigned the right course. And that helped me sleep a little bit better because then I was able to say, great, well, now I know the branching's working. So, okay, if this experiment works or doesn't work, I don't have to worry about it being because we made a mistake during the setup. It's actually a result of the experiment, which was very nice.
Totally.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'll keep us moving then into the fun section, the results, right? I didn't have my mic on like for Ryan. Ryan, it's hard to do your champion voice.
Let me do it later. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the okay,
See,
sorry.
this-
Was
Yeah.
that dopey enough? I try.
That was perfect. Absolutely nailed it. Nailed it.
No tomatoes. No tomatoes.
No tomatoes. No tomatoes. All right, let's jump in and look at some results. So, result one, it was in the title of the talk, right? But we are very, very proud of this. We doubled course starts, right? More than doubled course starts actually here, right? So in our control group, 31% of new users started a course. And if you think about, and then in our perceived fit condition, which was our highest performing condition for course starts, we saw 63% of people starting courses, right? This is a huge effect, right? Like you don't always see effect sizes this big in experiments. If you think about why this is, if we even let's just jump back there really quickly, just to remember to remind ourselves. In the control experience, can you find a course? Yes, absolutely, of course you can, right? You can go into the Explore tab and you can go and search for a course and you can go and get one. And there's so much great content that will be matched to you. In our treatment conditions, right, particularly in perceived fit, what we're doing is we're asking you a few simple questions and then we're matching you with a course. And what that's doing is twofold. One, obviously, it's surfacing courses more obviously part during onboarding, right? That is certainly part of the effect. But maybe even more importantly, what we're doing is we're giving you the perception that we're tailoring what course we're offering to you when you see it, right? So if you go and explore courses for yourself, you have to go and look through and you have to say, is this one right? Is that one right? Is this one right? When you do it this way, what you do is you ask a couple of questions and people get the sense, oh, I see, you're trying to understand exactly what I want and what will be best for me and recommend a course to me. And that makes them value the course itself actually more. And therefore, they're even more likely to start the course. So it's the combination of, yes, surfacing it, making it more easy to find, but also making it seem more high value by personalizing it, or at least creating the perception, the perceived fit of that personalization. And so this is really seen here between these two conditions, right? If you look at the default to basics condition, if you think about what we did there, we don't ask people any questions. We just give them the basics course, as we called it, exploring stillness, right? And in that case, 55.3% of people start a course. In the perceived fit condition, we ask you the quiz questions first. We give you the perception that we're going to tailor the course to you, but instead we actually still give you the default to basics course. You see a 7.6 percentage point lift, right? Just from asking the questions. And so I think this is a really important lesson that we can all take away here, is that like during onboarding, people want to know that this app is for me. And you can do that by asking some questions, even if you don't have sophisticated personalization going on underneath the hood, right? Helping create the perception that you are listening and that you are going to tailor something for them is helpful. And I will make a quick note here is that, remember, what we gave them, the thing that we did default them to in both of these conditions was still technically right for them, right? We defaulted them to a basics course. You wouldn't see this result if we defaulted everyone to an advanced course, right? Because think about who these people are, right? They're new users. It's likely that a significant portion of them have not meditated or done a sleep practice before. And so it's not just that asking questions alone is like a magical thing. It's that you ask questions and then do indeed pick at least some content or related like behavior intervention that does fit the majority of people who are going through your onboarding experience. Result number 2. So you heard me talk about my pet condition in this experiment, pre-commitment. I really liked the idea because I thought it would do this, and thankfully it did do this. So pre-commitment managed to bring more people back to the app and more often. So when people made that concrete plan and said, this is when I'm going to meditate, this is where I'm going to do it, this is how I'm going to do it, we saw a higher level of app opens compared to the control group. So 7.5% increase in app opens, right? And remember, mostly done without a huge increase in notifications. And unique app open days also increased, right? So the actual specific unique days they came back was more often. So people came back on different days, and when they came back on different days, they opened the app more often. And so helping people make really concrete plans in this kind of format, when X happens, I will do Y, really helps people make a specific plan. And that closes that intention action gap that I mentioned at the start, right? It helps people follow through on their intent to do better sleep hygiene, have more focus, meditate more often when they make a clear plan about how they will do it. Result 3. And this, I think, is really important to be honest about. So yes, we got people to come back. Yes, we got people to start courses. But that did not, unfortunately, in this case, move meditation days. So we saw 0 statistically significant lift across our 4 treatment arms here. And so what we can clearly say is that in this case, the better onboarding experience led to more course starts. It led to more app opens. But in this particular instance, it didn't lead to more meditation. And so I think it's important to try and probe at that a little bit, right? And get at like, why do we think that gap might exist? And I think there's a couple of reasons why. The first is it's possible that new users couldn't find their course when they came back. So like in any experiment, right, you have to make trade-offs about what you're testing. And we had suggested including what we call like a return modal, which was like every time you'd open Headspace, you'd get a little modal saying, oh, remember your course is over here. If you want to jump into that, great. Or if you want to go and explore the app yourself, that's totally fine. As we kind of got closer and closer to experiment launch, this was cut for prioritization. It's possible that users found it hard to find where their course was when they came back, right? Because we saw those increased app opens, but we didn't see those convert to meditation minutes, and that's potentially one reason why. A second is if you think about what control users were doing in the control condition during onboarding, they got a 1 minute breathing exercise. This might be much closer to what like a typical lay person thinks about when they think about meditation, right? They might think, oh, it's mostly just sitting down and doing some breathing, right? Of course, it's more than that, but that's kind of maybe something that they have in their head. And so in our treatments, we were giving users a much longer guided course, right? Some of the sessions were 5, 10, or 15 minutes, depending on their answers. And that may have been too much too soon for new meditators. And then finally, we did see in our conditions where we did personalize our results, we did see that the way that we set up that branching, we did actually over prioritize sleep content maybe a little bit. So stress and anxiety were the top user reported needs, but the way that our logic was set up for matching, we may have slightly overweighted sleep courses. And so maybe we should have been actually recommending people to more courses related to stress and anxiety, even if they had said that they had expressed a sleep interest. And just to explain a little bit why we did that, and Meagan, you can give some color here as well. I believe that there was data at the time suggesting that actually like sleep courses were becoming more and more popular on the app, and like this is the main reason that people were coming to Headspace. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Our sleep content is incredibly sticky and some of our most popular content in the app. It is something you listen to at night though when you're going to sleep. So a little difficult when somebody's potentially in the middle it's in the middle of the day, they're signing up for Headspace for the first time and we're like, hey, listen to the sleep story. It's possibly not the right timing for it.
Yeah, it's a great point to also to consider like the user's context, right? Which in this case might be time. It would be nice to take a nap in the middle of the day sometimes, though.
I know. I was going to say I had just done a sleep story, so I just woke up and things seem to be going really well. Carry on, carry on.
Great. Okay, so let's just talk about some big picture learnings from this whole experience and this experiment that we ran together. So 5 learnings for product and behavior design. So anyone here who does that, hopefully there's something useful for you in here. First is that onboarding is indeed a high motivation moment, right? People are probably the most excited they're ever going to be about your app, right? They've come to your app, they've gone through the app store and they've downloaded it. This is the time where they're like, I want this thing, right? And so prioritizing the right behaviors to have users complete during that flow is really important. You saw this in our metrics, right, of being able to increase core starts significantly, right? In this particular case, that didn't lead to the ultimate outcome that we wanted. But you could have imagined another version of this experiment where it did, right? And so it's worth thinking about what behaviors am I putting in onboarding, because this is where people at their most are at their most motivated, where they're most likely to do the things you ask of them. Asking creates idiosyncratic fit, right? Remember, perceived fit and actual fit conditions basically performed the same, with perceived fit actually slightly outperforming the actual fit condition on certain things. So it's not just that the personalized and matching works on its own. It's actually just giving people the feeling that they're being listened to and that you're personalizing the content for them, even if you're not doing that matching, can help turn what is essentially a generic good recommendation that is right for them, but it can help them make it feel like it's uniquely theirs. And that is indeed important. I think this is a fair one to make, which is beating your best beginner content can be hard. Our Headspace have done an excellent job of just making their onboarding experience, even their basic breathing experience, excellent, right? Like it's obviously been optimized to a very strong degree. And so trying to do personalized matching above and beyond that, even above and beyond like the basics course that Headspace have obviously invested a lot of time in, can be difficult, right? And so you really want to think about like if we've invested all this time and optimized some of our beginner content, maybe actually we don't need personalized matching as much. Again, maybe what's more important is creating that idiosyncratic fit by creating the perception of fit rather than doing all of the fancy personalization. For implementation intentions, I never say that right, helps to bring people back. So when people make those concrete plans, right, when and where and how will I do this, they're more likely to come back. That's a good general lesson for you when you're trying to get people to come back to something. And finally, like front door design does have a ceiling, right? So for demanding habits like meditation, you likely need feedback loops, whether that's streaks, something else, right? Throughout the journey to give people a reason to continue and form a habit. We always say as behavioral scientists, we can only solve for the behavior right in front of us, right? So that's why we focused on course starts. We thought if we can get you into a course is a structured program that should keep you going. But once you're in the course, right, it is kind of up to you to keep going. And so it's possible that we needed more behavioral design interventions throughout the rest of the experience to help people form that sticky habit and continue in their active meditation or sleep practice. And with that, I will say thank you so much for listening. And I know that I'm sure there's a bunch of questions. I'll stop my screen share and we can go to a lively Q&A.
Yeah, so it is extremely lively. There is no Walking Dead here going on whatsoever. We've got 14 questions already in the queue and counting. So I'm going to try and facilitate this as best I can to the speakers. You might look at the Google Doc just so you can kind of see what's in the queue. And people are being nice. They're like, oh, this was answered ultimately. So Steve, thanks for doing that. So we'll start with Lynn, and I think I'm going to read the questions just so we can get more in. So Lynn Brotman in Jersey, that's right. She said, did you look at all the stats on paid members engaging either by long-term use for meditation or other?
Megan, did we do that? I don't know if I remember if we did that now.
I honestly cannot remember. So long
Let
ago.
me check in the background while we take another question. I'll go dig through the experimental docs and I'll see if we did that.
We're off to a very strong start with amnesia is our answer. Cool. Sharon, actually, you can come on real quick because you're in Seattle. You want to ask your question?
Yes, fantastic research, by the way. So I liked your slide on why trialists may have been disengaging early, and you had some hypotheses about that. And I was wondering if that came from the qual, or is that something just based on your experience? You were to say, typically it does this.
We did. That hypothesis did come from the qual. We were seeing people were giving us feedback specifically that they were having choice overload. They, kind of didn't know what to do next, where to get started. We have a very vast library of content in our app. So for new folks, often you just need more guidance on how do I get started? I don't know what to do. And this is consistent feedback that we've heard not only from this like specific journaling qual that we talked about for this project, but in previous qual and studies we had done in the past. It's a consistently difficult place for new meditators to understand how to get going.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, cool. Some people I can get on the mic, especially if I know you. James, you want to ask your question? And James he didn't have access to the Google, so I had to bounce him up on the doc. So James, are you there in New York City?
I am
Yeah,
here. Yeah,
ask
so
away.
I was just curious on the one of the experimental conditions, the precondition condition. There was one option that said popular that was 1 to 5 minutes, which was the lowest level of commitment. Were you intentionally trying to push people to that low commitment for a smoother path and for not being overwhelmed?
Look at you, James. Nothing gets past you. I love all the behavioral science knowledge you've built up from working with us. Yeah, exactly right. Um, we worried a little bit that, like, in other data that Headspace has shared with us, like, more advanced users are probably likely, like people who are already deeply engaged are likely to do a 20-minute session. But for a beginner, like a 20-minute meditation session, especially if you're asking them to do it multiple times per week, is quite a lot. And so, yes, we were trying to smooth that a little bit by using the signpost like popular, like basically making kind of like a social norm play there to encourage people to pick the 1 to 5 minute option.
Awesome. Thank you, James. Katie Kraft in Berkeley, California. Are you out there? Can you take the mic?
I am, and it's Kate Craft. Hey everyone, nice to
Oh,
meet you
Kate,
all.
sorry.
That
Cool.
is all
Yeah,
right.
bring it.
My general rule is if you're over 80, you're allowed to call me Katie, but sounds like that's not you're insincere. Hey folks, I'm
I'm not
curious.
there
You
yet. Not there yet.
talked about intent and assuming that folks who have started the trial have an intent for a longer term habit. And so I'm just sort of curious how you actually thought about evaluating intent, and do you have a sense, are you able to sort of divide up your initial trial users by those with stronger or weaker intent? And does that affect how you think about the type of service you provide them in that 2-week trial?
I would say that like something internally at Headspace, we've like tried to understand who like our different customer personas are coming into our app, right? And these users trying to build like a meditation habit is one persona. This experiment didn't necessarily like target all of the major personas we see people coming in with. Like, for example, one big cohort of new users we have coming in are people who are in like a critical need state right now. They're looking for support right in the moment. And this onboarding flow doesn't necessarily support them well. It's something that we've been talking about internally and thinking about how can we better support members who maybe aren't in this state of trying to build a habit, but need, for example, support right now. So we can kind of target our onboarding experience depending on, who you are coming in and what your need is at the moment.
And then I'll add one thing to that maybe, which is like Megan's obviously exactly right. But we in our like personalized fit condition, there was a question about like what level are you at in your practice? So like are you a beginner or like are you deep into your practice and so on? And so if people pick deep into their practice, we would recommend like more advanced content if you like, or like longer content. But Megan's exactly right about kind of like the need state point.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Britta in the city of Prince. That's Minneapolis, people. Are you out there? Uh-oh. No Britta? Okay, we're gonna bounce to Fabricio in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Are you out there, Fabricio?
Yes. So
Yeah.
thank you all for sharing the project. I started my question before Lohan's explanation, but I think this still applies because I was thinking that those 5 options were very complex to prepare, right? To think. I was wondering the development behind it, but then this was not so much of a problem, thankfully. But then how do you balance this, right? How much of effort you put on preparing? I mean, why not 3? Why not 7? And you mentioned, right, Karl, that you wanted to do maybe 50, but then, yeah, how do you balance those between effort and the outcome you expect?
I think it's going to take all three of us to answer this one about how it went down. But yeah, I mean, look, as a behavioral scientist, I'm curious. I have lots of hypotheses of things that work. And then it's obviously a conversation about what's realistic, right? Even with Purposely, you can do way more. Like, there's no way we would have done something this complicated without Purposely, but there still has to be some limit, right? And also just from like a sample perspective, like you don't have infinite amount of users, so you have to think about like statistical power and stuff like that. And so we really tried to work with Meagan and her team to say, okay, look, maybe we have 10 ideas, but like what seems like the most promising 5 that are both interesting from like a theory perspective for us as behavioral scientists, and that Meagan would say, well, based on what I know, like could work. Yes, we did do a lot of cutting, but Megan, maybe you want to talk a little bit more about that, and then Laurent, you can talk about like the practicalities of how we even got 5 done.
Yeah, I was thinking about the sample. I remember saying to Karl, like, we can't run this experiment for 3 months, right? I want to get learning sooner than that. So we really needed to take a look at how many users are coming in and what was the right number of arms to have to get, learnings within kind of like a good time frame for us.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna second Meagan. Like, I think even if there is no technology barriers or constraints anymore, the time to insight is super important, and it is of course limited by your sample size. So even if there is no efforts on engineering anymore, you want to get results fast enough, so then move to the next experiment, of course.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. That brings us to the next question from Jean in Redwood City. Are you able to take the mic?
I am. Hello.
Awesome. Hey,
Huge
hey.
huge fan of Headspace. Love you guys. So my question is about the test privacy of data and globalization. I'm not aware if Headspace is actually in markets other than the United States, but particularly with using a third party to capture some of this data, I'm wondering how you would address potential privacy concerns. And if you are global, are you planning to take this test globally to different markets? Do you expect it maybe to perform differently in other places?
We are global. We ran this experiment for English speaking users only. Karl, I'm blanking on if we limited the countries to a few English speaking countries or if we did it broader, but we had our baseline like data privacy like infrastructure in place already for this experiment. We didn't necessarily need to do anything new that we didn't already have in place when asking, users in our app, for questions during onboarding, for example. It wasn't anything that we weren't already set up to handle.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Gregoire in London, but not from London. How are you, man?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, guys. I think my question overlaps a lot what has already been asked, and I think my question, if I can reframe it a little bit, is I know that you only solve things one step at a time, but I was wondering if what was kind of the brief that was on the table for Irrational Lab from Headspace? Was it just to get this metric of onboarding up, which was clearly a success, and then the minutes behind is something different? Because obviously, from what you've said and what we can gauge, there is people who come because they are in need, people who come because they already have a strong practice and want a tool alongside them, people who come and who are completely new to meditation. And I think those are and I guess another couple types of personas. And I guess this cannot be solved similarly for all of them. What you showed and demonstrated is obviously you could better the first metrics. And I wondered if it was something that has to do with the type of persona then to improve the second metrics. But what was the brief and kind of how do you see it going further to solve the next metric?
Great. Yeah. Thanks. Great question. Megan can speak to this as well, but I think it was very much a partnership, right? Like we knew we wanted to do something together and we knew it was around helping new trial users deepen their habits. And then it was very much a conversation about back and forth about, okay, so what is the ultimate metric that you care about? In this case, it was increasing the activation days so that we would see an increase in free trial conversion to paid membership. And then we had, I don't know how many meetings we had. We had a lot of meetings about well, what's the best way to do that? Is it getting people into courses? Is it doing something else? And I think that's a good and healthy way of doing it, right? You agree on the outcome that you really care about. And this is something we talk about all the time. We spend a lot of time defining a key behavior because if you don't get specific, if you only defined your outcome, there's just too many ways to do it, right? Like if I said, well, go out and increase free to paid conversion, right? Well, maybe I'll change the price or maybe I'll do something else, right? But you really want to narrow in on exactly how you think you're going to do that. And so it really was a series of conversations between ourselves and Megan and the team at Headspace.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we have 2 left, or I'm going to try and squeeze these in. Tanvi, can you come on the mic, please?
Hi, yes. First of all, great presentation, so thank you for sharing. Yeah, I just wanted to understand a little bit more about the results, and maybe I totally missed it, which is probably the case. But one result mentioned that the app opens increased, but then I think the result 3 was no statistically significant lift in meditation hours. So does that mean users opened the app but didn't do anything or meditated fewer minutes? Like what did that mean?
Yeah, so I think it just meant that there was no difference between the control group. So there still were people coming in, obviously, and meditating and so on in our treatment groups. There just wasn't either an increase or a decrease. So I think we tried to explain on that side, we were talking about the gaps, but I think one of our pet theories is like people might have been coming back, and because we didn't have the return modal and stuff like that, it might have just been hard for them to go, wait, where is my course? And like we said, it's also possible that like we were matching people even with our personalization to content that was a little more advanced than they maybe would have wanted from the start. And so like look, meditation is great. You get real benefits from it, but like it can feel effortful sometimes, especially as a beginner. And so you want to do two things. You want to make it really easy for them to come back and find, hey, where is the thing I'm trying to do, like my course? And you really got to nail like the feeling of the experience as well, of like, oh, okay, yes, I'm doing a little bit more each time, like I'm building my experience and getting more confident. And so I think it's those two things.
And I think if I can piggyback, choice can be a challenge for folks in some instances too, especially as you're first starting out. And let's say they didn't actually find their course and they're now sifting through content, maybe akin to something like I open Netflix and I actually don't end up watching anything because I can't pick the next thing for me. And so although past behavior can be really helpful, in this case, if I couldn't find the thing and I have this like choice paralysis now because of the overwhelming kind of amount of great content out there, I may actually just bounce.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Very, very cool. All right, before I squeeze in a final question and a big round of thank yous, I think we're going to be able to squeeze Matt in. But in the chat, should you be interested in working with Irrational Labs, who wouldn't be? We do cool things with cool partners like Meagan and Laurent. So I did put links in there for Claire and Katie. So definitely connect with them at LinkedIn and just be their friends. But you could also reach out if you need some help. And then I did put, this is all written up as a big, ginormous, really exciting, super cool case study. So definitely click on that. This will give you kind of the broad strokes of what we did here with this killer collaboration. The video will drop within 48, if not sooner. So stay tuned. You'll get a follow-up email on that. I'm going to get one more question in before we thank everybody. But yes, Matt, ask your question. Go, go, go.
What did you consider implementing any other behavior change techniques other than implementation intentions?
You mean in addition to the other conditions that we included in the experiment?
Yeah. What was on your candidate list?
Oh, I mean, we had so many, like, and Katie, you can come off mute here for this. And again, this is part of the conversations back and forth between Irrational Labs and Headspace about what we want to test, right? And what feels right for the user group and so on. So like, I know one we really wanted to test was streaks, right? And I think Meagan, there was kind of some pushback from your side around like similar to the notification thing, respecting users like level of like not causing undue stress from streaks, let's say.
Yeah, the two that won out in this case, I guess there's kind of a third layered on top of that, but idiosyncratic fit, appealing to idiosyncratic fit and making people feel as though these things are personalized to them is kind of building on the work of Jennifer Schroeder out of Berkeley on like asking people questions and kind of building that positive intent. And then of course there's the implementation intentions. And then I think some of the identity pieces kind of come into play when we say, oh, maybe we don't actually call this the basics course for the earlier treatment arms.
That's awesome. Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for your time and energy today. But most importantly, thank you to Meagan, Laurent, and Karl. If you could give them your funniest emoji to show your thanks and appreciation for their time and genius today. Everybody's accessible via LinkedIn. So if you have any follow-up questions, please follow up. They love to share. This is like a really long, interesting experiment, and they'd love to talk to you more. And it's just been a joy to have all your engagement. We love to see all those questions. We love to get people on mics, and we love to showcase the work that our partners do with our behavioral scientists. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Merry Thursday. Pretend it's Friday. Carry on. Have a wonderful rest of day, night, evening, whatever it is, because I know we have some people in India that need to go to bed. So everybody take care of yourself and one another. We'll catch you next month. Take care.